Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for coming. And welcome to the future of developer experience. We're very pleased to have you all here today. This is not the first event we're doing. This is happening not only in San Francisco, this is actually a very global event. The first series of it we've done back in June in New York during the Tech Week. And we've done it with Arthur and Vercel. So please, huge round of applause. Thank you for joining us again, and thank you for being with us. We also are very pleased to welcome Grafana, Recce, thank you. Thank you for being with us this time. And Convex, thank you for having us in this wonderful place. I love the guitars. Thank you. Beautiful. So I'll give you a quick agenda for tonight. So we would love to ask you just two things. We would love to, if you were to accomplish just two very, very important things. One is we would love you to meet someone new and learn something new. That's it. So learning, hopefully we'll accomplish that through the talks that we're going to have. We'd love to see your hands and questions. And we'll be talking about what the future of developer experience is going to look like. How it's changing, how it's evolving, how our day-to-days and the future is changing with AI and with many, many other tools that are emerging. So we would all love you to stay connected. So this is a magical QR code. You will find a lot of information there, so please scan it. Love seeing more and more phones. Nice. Okay. If you were to turn on flashlights and do this, that would be great. Okay. Beautiful. And please don't forget that after that we're going to have a happy hour. So we'd love to all see you there as well. I think we'll post the location for those of you who don't know where it is. But yeah, or we can talk to Daniel. He knows everything. So yeah. Well, so we're going to be talking, as I said, about the future of developer experience tonight. So I would love to welcome all the speakers on stage so that we're going to begin right now.
Awesome. Awesome. But as you see, I'm not one of the speakers, not one of the faces, the many faces. But I'm Wayne Sutton. I run the startup program and community here at Convex, and welcome to our lovely building, welcome to our lovely space. Thank you all for coming. But the main question is, are you all having a great Tech Week? Good, good. All right. Who's not from San Francisco in here? All right. Oh, wow, a lot of people. Do not get tricked by this weather. This is not how it normally is. So keep that in mind. But we love you, and please come back. But and who's here is a Convex customer? I see 1, 2, 3. Not enough. Not enough. All right. This is my shot, my one shot before I get in my moderator responsibilities to give my spiel about Convex, especially since you're in the building, you're in the room. So Convex is the backend platform that keeps your apps in sync. In a nutshell, we're a database for real-time and AI applications to help you scale. Like to think about Convex as a modern-day Firebase. There's some other bases, companies out there, but give us a shot. Check out the docs. Let us know what you think. We would love your feedback. That's my spiel. That's it. Convex.dev. Check us out. Now let me get to my duties. Okay. Now have a seat. Okay. Do a little intros right quick. Dimitri, CEO of Deskree, enabling AI to reason across software ecosystems, from the smallest piece of code to the entire infrastructure layer and beyond. And I'm gonna go off the rails a little bit. So what does that mean?
So essentially what we're doing is, if you look at current AI tooling nowadays for developer experience, you as an engineer is the one who's responsible to provide the context for the AI tool that you're engaging with. And ultimately, based on how we structure this context and how much of it you provide, you would expect a certain level of accuracy from that AI tool. So what we are doing is we're essentially connecting to your code base, we connect your infrastructure layer, monitor observability layer. We extract this information for you, and we have a reasoning platform on top of that that enables you to essentially reach the context of a conversation with the actual data that is happening within your system. So to enable you to do two things. A, to ask questions that are extremely difficult to ask for or impossible for existing AI tools. But B, will dramatically increase the accuracy of the response because it now relies not on the internet search or hallucination, it actually now relies on the actual data from your live production system.
Great. In other words, you keep the AI in check.
Pretty much, yeah.
Awesome. Great, great. All right, up next we have Recce, software engineer at Vercel, working on the domains teams at Vercel for platforms. Okay, there's a lot in there. Domains, Vercel for platforms. Vercel has a lot going on. What do you do, Recce? What do you do?
Yeah, so I'm over at Vercel, and I'm working on our domains team. And yeah, so kind of my day-to-day is we work on like the registrar platform that we have, linking domains to projects. For those of you that might not know Vercel, it's kind of front-end and back-end hosting for web developers, and that's kind of most recently now building out like the AI cloud with the AI gateway, AI SDK, Vercel sandbox, all the tooling that kind of you need as a developer. And so my part in the equation is I'm on our domains team, and one of the things we just shipped recently was the fastest domain search on the web, which is a really exciting ship. And so if you go to it, it is basically instant, from key press to result. And then kind of on the platform side of things, something we're really looking at is how do you kind of take what the primitives Vercel has built and enable more people to ship on that. And so when we kind of look at the primitives that Vercel has, we've got really great routing of domains to projects. And so then we have customers that like Mintlify that let people bring their own domains to doc sites, and kind of we provide the primitives to enable that. And then another part on the platform side is hosting AI generated or custom generated code. So kind of a great example of that is like spawn.co. Which is kind of like a vibe coding app for games, who kind of, the backend for that is powered by Vercel, where AI generate code, and then Vercel does the hosting of it.
You all are doing a lot, and you raised a lot, so congrats.
Thank you.
Yep. Next we have Ian, lead engineer at Author AI, building tools to help AI teams implement an agentic development process to deliver production quality agents. Okay, building tools, agentic development process, quality agents. What's the spill?
Yeah, I guess for the people in the room, how many people have experimented with building their own agent? I guess show of hands. All right. And keep those hands up if that agent was reliable, you could trust it all the time, and you were comfortable putting it in front of paying customers. No hands. So, long story, I saw one hand. All right, we'll have to talk. But long story short, we're trying to help our customers and partners bring these agents and AI systems and products from good prototypes, good demos. I'll talk about this a little bit later, but to cross that chasm where you can build trust with your customers, your clients, and really rely on these AI systems to be correct. So long story short, yeah, all the tools that go into that, from observability, evals, monitoring, guardrails, we kind of build a platform. And I guess you can think of it like the developer ecosystem around how you build agents reliably.
Awesome. Great. Holding agents accountability again.
Yep.
Good stuff. Awesome. All right. Nathan, engineer manager, correct me. You got to pronounce this for me. Give it to me. Engineer manager at Grafana?
Grafana.
Grafana.
Yep.
Grafana Labs. Thank you. Building features and workflows to improve your observability and dashboarding experience. Workflows. What's the spill?
Yeah, so hi everyone, my name's Nathan. I'm engineering manager at Grafana Labs. Mainly work on a team that's working on the dashboarding core experience. And something I've been really passionate about recently in the last couple of years has kind of been testing out how AI, specifically like the large language models, can actually really help users get value out of Grafana more quickly. Because observability is kind of an interesting space. It's like everyone knows you should do it, but not everyone's an expert in it, and not everyone wants to invest the time to become an expert in that space. And so we've kind of found that this has been a good opportunity to kind of invest, to see if we can kind of, not necessarily dumb it down, but like kind of provide experiences using agentic assistant to try to make it as easy as possible to gain value and quickly be able to get up and running with wherever your data is, being able to observe it and then act on it. Things like setting up alerts, SLOs, things like that. And so that's something that I'm excited to share a little bit more later on today. But yeah.
Awesome. Looking forward to the demo. All right. Last but not least, CL. Okay. Founder, CEO Reese built version control systems prior to Git. You know, people have been saying it's time for a new GitHub. So anyway. And one of the largest open data and open government communities. All right. What are you doing now? What are you doing? A new GitHub?
No. This is a little loud. The company is Recce. We built a product that basically helps people to validate data systems, as in building like CI/CD for data system. So how many of you know about like kind of declarative data pipelines such as dbt? Yeah. Okay. So now you can. dbt is great because you can like kind of codify. It's like a code first data pipeline, and then you can do pull requests to change your logic. But the problem is that regarding to like regular CI/CD and testing software, and it's like pretty automated, and then testing is covered. But for data, you don't see the data, you don't really know if it's right or wrong, right? So basically, I think it's a missing step here for a data system. And then for all the AI systems, it's very close to the data pipeline actually. Consider all this non-deterministic nature of that, and then how we wanted to map the input data that you care about and the output behavior. So I'll show a little bit about that later. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Great. Let's give them a round of applause. We're going to do a lot of clapping tonight. Round of applause. All right. Thank you. Okay, question for you all. How many of you are currently a full stack dev? Full stack devs? All right, great. All right. Who's working in developer relations, DevEt space, title? All right. Interesting, okay. Other? Okay, great. All right, we figured it out. Okay, all right, let's jump in. Building with context. This question is for Dimitri. LLMs are flooding workflows, but context is the bottleneck. How are you rethinking systems context for AI?
It's a good question. I think ultimately, at the end of the day, if you look at any systems historically that work with data, the quality of output very often, if not all the time, really depends on the quality of input. And even though the context window in existing AI tools grows and grows with each and every model coming up and things like that, ultimately you, as an engineer, are responsible to put information to that context. And if we look at the developer behavior in terms of like even vibe coding or like you engaging with AI, it's changed a lot because we've used to, we started with tools like Copilot that just helps you here and there. And now all of a sudden you can use a cursor and it reads all your files and things like that. But ultimately what we see here is that less and less it is an engineer who's manually putting something into context. It's more like a tool that is able to grab this. So the way we think about context is you as an engineer, you never work in isolation. Every single thing that you do impacts other teams, other members, other repositories, because it's all very complex interconnected system. The example that I like to give is when you're an engineer working on the back end, and you have to make sure that whatever you do, if you change the data structure or anything like that, at the end of the day, it might have impact on your front end or other places. So one of our responsibilities is something we call awareness, meaning that we want engineers to, when they engage with AI tool, we want that AI tool to be aware not of just the space where an engineer is working on, but across other segments that he or she might not think that, oh, this will actually affect that. So an example of the back end and front end is if you're working on, let's say, an API, and you're using, let's say you're engaging with Cursor and using Tetrix or one of our products, what basically happens is we'll be able to bring that context into that specific conversation, tell you like, hey, do you realize that if you're about to make that API change, your front end will go down because it does expect a different input at this point in time. So talk to your front end team, do you want me to create Jira ticket or things like that. So, and that interconnectedness, it comes not just from your code layer, it comes from many, many other places. This is the same story with debugging. You're not trying to find an error just in your code base. It It exists in the infra layer. It exists in your Prometheus, where you can look it up and things like that. So our responsibility is to structure that context and bring into as many conversations within the team as we can.
Nice. It sounds like Deskree is trying to solve the problem. Like we got content engineering, vibe engineering, people talking about yesterday, vibe coding. You basically want to include the whole stack and the whole team when someone's consider prompting and all the files and other coworkers that can impact.
Indeed. We actually been called a Hermione bag a lot, meaning that what we basically do is we put all this context in a bag that you can carry with you into any conversation, and that's basically what it is.
Nice. That's so needed. I won't tell you some horror stories, but it's so needed. Now, I'm not getting paid to give the spiel for him, but it sounds cool.
We'll fix that.
That's great. Sounds good. See me afterwards. All right, how are you really approaching this at Deskree? I know you touched on it, so you want to dive in a little bit more in terms of like your go-to-market strategy and also some success stories?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the most important thing for us in terms of the way people interact with a tool like us is to be invisible, in the sense that there's already too many tooling when it comes to like different areas of software development cycle, and we don't want us to be another one that you have to set up and maintain, things like that. So ultimately, we boil down the user experience to, hey, essentially it's two-step process. You connect us to whatever you want us to be connected to, aka your GitHub, your AWS accounts, your monitor observability layer, or many other tools. Then what we do is we do two important things. One is we create something we call a knowledge graph, which is essentially a semantic representation of all the different data points that you have within your organization. So let's say you have 10,000 repositories. We're able to load those 10,000 repositories into the context of any conversation. So when you chat with, let's say, Claude, you have to select the repository you're mentioning. With us, you actually don't need to, because we already have them in that knowledge graph. And what we also do is we connect that knowledge graph to let's say the infrastructure layer. We can say, oh, this is a service that is deployed over here. This is a service. This is how this service communicates with the other service, and so on and so forth. So that knowledge map construction takes some time. Sometimes 5 minutes, sometimes 2 hours. It really depends on the volume of data. We also save something we call intrinsic knowledge, meaning that, let's say there are certain practices within your organization that exist, but they're not written anywhere. So what we're able to see is the different patterns of behaviors and different patterns of how you develop things, and so on. So all that represent that knowledge graph. The problem with the knowledge graph is just having that does not benefit you at all, unless you can query against that knowledge graph. So what we have on top of this is something we call a reasoning agent, meaning it's a series of basically sub-agents, like hundreds of them, that are able to query that information against that knowledge graph. So all that sounded too complex for me to say like, oh, it's easy. But ultimately, when it comes to the user experience, you basically connect your GitHub, connect your cloud accounts, all those things. And then there's two ways you can interact with us. You can talk with us through our own UI if you wish, or you can connect us as an MCP to your Cursor, to your Claude, or all the other applications. And then context will just exist over there. And that's basically what it is. So we want to be invisible in that sense. In terms of like GTM or like companies that we usually work with, most of it is, like mostly sizable companies or like enterprise as well. But we've actually recently launched the self-serve option that is available to anyone to try. So that was launched on Monday. We did the big event. So anybody want to give it a try, would love to see you there as well.
Awesome. Well, congrats on the launch.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Awesome. Anyone using Deskree here? Not yet? Okay.
Yeah. So that's what today says.
Yeah, great. So let's jump a little bit, to the next hurdle in the development cycle. Once you build your product or you're working on, you decided what you want to build and you maybe using Deskree, but now you want to talk about deploying it and so forth. So this question for Reese at Vercel. Front-end teams face pressure to ship fast while staying performant. What new patterns are you seeing where everybody's shipping fast with Vercel? And I know you all have a lot going on with V0 and so forth. So how has that opened these Pandora box, so to speak?
Yeah, kind of going over like how I kind of focus on shipping quickly, like how we work as a team. What's nice about working at Vercel is we dog food, like everything that we build. And a lot of that kind of contributes to like developer productivity and like a faster iteration cycle. And so kind of some of the ways that like my team's been unlocking speed is a big one's been V0. What I'll do is I will, let's say that I'm like trying to figure out a certain CSS thing, so like maybe a sticky nav bar on an infinite scroll or like text truncation. I'll spin up a V0 and I'll be like, hey, please like make this for me, kind of give me a demo of what this would look like. And what's so incredible about that is it takes me out of like this environment with a ton of variables, like kind of annoying to work in, and it puts me in just this isolated environment where I can focus on only what is generated. And the kind of quick background on what V0 is, it's a like vibe coding app, but it's kind of focused on like developers and then also kind of like as developers and internal tools. And so what you get is you get a chat interface and it generates React components and then it runs them in a sandbox. It can also do other tools since it's running in a sandbox. But my main use case is generating Next.js with it. So that's been really nice as like a reducing the number of variables, increasing my speed to find solutions to things. And then another use case for V0 that we kind of have unlocked at the company is it's no longer presenting Notion docs of ideas. It's like if you're going to come to a meeting, come with like a demo prepared of what it would look like visually in the product, like interactive, click around, and like it takes the same amount of time to create an interactive demo now of what your ideas are as it does like text on a page, and it's so much more compelling when you're able to communicate that from a V0 rather than a Notion doc.
No, that's great. I love it that we are now in the, I love that we have doubled down in the show don't tell, right? It's like we talk about it and so forth. Let's see a demo. Speaking of demos, I believe you have a demo.
Yeah, let me get that set up.
Let's fire it up. All right, do a little juggling around here. 1 second, bear with us. Everybody good? Yes. All right. Good. So quiet.
All right, is everyone able to see that? Do I need to zoom at all? Good? Great. So I kind of wanted to just go over how I'm using Vercel and like how I use Vercel with other tools to kind of improve my developer velocity. I'm a big fan of kind of the editor Cursor, and one of the features Cursor's shipped recently is background agents. And I have just this Slack channel of all of these messages that when something comes up, I send it to Cursor. And what's really I love about this is when using Vercel, you get these preview deployments. Let me find one that's been merged. Yeah, so I gave it this prompt of, hey, there's overlap in this background, please fix this. And what's great is I just get a preview deployment that I can go right to and sign into, and it puts me right into being able to validate that it did the changes correctly without having to like open up my editor. If I'm working on kind of a larger problem and I don't want to change context or swap and like do a pm reinstall, like it's just I get the code, I'm able to read the code in GitHub, and I'm able to visually see that it works in this preview deployment. And so kind of in this case, I've had it make a change to our domains page. Yeah, so I've had it make a change to our domains page, and so here it fixed like an alignment on the button at the top here. And this was all just created from a prompt to me saying, hey, please go fix this. I didn't have to check out anything locally, and I reviewed the code, and it works really great. Another thing that I kind of use to speed up my productivity and make life easier is I use Graphite with stacked diffs. So Graphite's kind of a thing that lives on top of GitHub, and it lets you make super minimal PRs. So each one of these you can see these are like one segment of changes that I was making. And so I had to kind of update these. I had to ship a filter to our domains page. And so the end result is this filter. And I actually noticed that we had a bug in our input component. And so when I was typing, it was jumping to the wrong input. I discovered that bug at like the very end of my work. And so what was great about this is I went down to a different PR, went down to the bottom of the stack, made a PR at the bottom, created that, and then kind of again with the pre-deployments, I got these were all redeployed so I could validate that it was working on them. People were able to see that it worked, review the code, and just isolate it in a chunk, which was super nice. And then also we have kind of this ability to bisect commits in Vercel. So each one of these was merged as an individual change, and then gets deployed to Vercel as that kind of commit. So if there had been a bug introduced in one of these, I would have been able to go and find the exact commit that caused that and revert that individual one, rather than kind of working these big blocks of code. And then kind of the last bit to show off is like what I was talking about with how I use v0. So this is an example where I was kind of exploring a sticky nav bar, and I just wanted the bare minimum of like what goes into making that work, making sure that the behavior is right. Another one with like the text overflow. And then the last one was I was exploring some different virtualized grid libraries, and I just had it like first make it with Virtuoso, and then I was kind of someone recommended that I use Virtua, and I was like, okay, let me have it spin it up, let me see how the APIs are different, and all this work just happened in the background, and I got this great preview that I was able to play around with and make sure it worked. And yeah, that's kind of how I accelerate my velocity, both with Vercel, but also like how Vercel plays in with other tools. I think is a really great thing. Yeah.
Great, and we will be taking some questions at the end, so hold your questions, type it in your notes, a few questions at the end. Thanks, Reese, for the demo. So sometimes I wonder, as a tech ecosystem, do we realize how much of a bubble we are in at times? And like what you're doing, what you just showed, like it's on like the cutting edge, right? People everywhere may not trust AI or like be willing to like turn over their code, even what you talked about. But we crave productivity, so to speak, these days, right? And speed and fast. How do you see a lot of teams using what you just showed in their workflows? Are you aware a lot of teams use the same workflow to like ship fast with productivity, with Cursor, connect GitHub, and so forth?
Yeah, I think what's been really interesting to see, specifically on the background agents part, so the question is kind of like, how are people, outside of like this bubble of us, like how are other people adopting it? And I think what's been really interesting with background agents is how quickly we've kind of realized, oh, we need to like update, like there is a good amount of adoption here for people that are picking them up and using these tools, and we need to update our systems to like treat agents as like individual, like treat agents as like contributors and free up limits. And so an example of that was when background agents first launched, they would create a PR to your GitHub, but it wouldn't make a preview deployment. And the reason for that is it like viewed it as a like seat. And so it was like, okay, so you can't make it for this one. And we're like, but that doesn't make sense. Like you shouldn't be limited on having an agent as your collaborator. And so then we worked on like making sure that all of these like agent generated PRs would be wouldn't be blocked on that. And the like number of kind of people that were like, oh, this is really important to me, and like the amount of volume that we saw from that, I think was really interesting and just kind of showing, oh, like there's a lot of adoption happening here.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Thanks
Yeah.
for the demo. Awesome. So next, first we just talked about shipping, but now we're going to talk about working directly more with AI, and we're going to talk about some agentic development practices. So we'll hear from Ian. So Ian, where do you see teams struggling the most when it comes to building AI products?
Yeah.
What's the real truth? Really struggling? Is it adoption? Is it the tools? Like what's the secret sauce? No pressure.
I think it's the mindset and how the team thinks about developing agentic systems. What we've experienced at Arthur and what a lot of our customers and partners are going through is these are the first kind of systems they're developing that are inherently non-deterministic. And us as engineers, we don't really like that. You know, we want to write the code, we want to run it once and be sure that every time it runs after that, it's going to do the same thing. So introducing this non-determinism into the system requires a different mindset and a different operating procedure as a development team for how to produce a trustworthy, reliable system like you would traditional software. So I think that's the biggest hurdle we're seeing right now with our partners is that they don't even know how to start kind of operating in a way that can produce successful outcomes with this non-deterministic agent-based products and systems.
Great. So mindset. So basically, everybody needs a growth mindset.
Yeah.
Got it. Everybody knows about that, right? Here in the room. Growth mindset, fixed mindset, growth mindset. All right. You have a demo.
Yeah.
Let's see it.
All right. Can you all hear me? Yeah? Up a little bit? All right. How about that? Cool. Awesome. Thank you. So I have part demo and part, I guess maybe educational piece, a little bit less demo. I'll try not to spend too much time on slides, but it's coming. All right. Cool. Sort of relate back to what I was saying before. We have kind of come up with this metaphor for how our customers and how we think about this. And we phrase this problem of, you know, as we raised our hands before, a lot of people are experimenting with agents and trying to ship them to production, and these demos are falling flat. People aren't trusting the agents, and they're struggling to get people to buy into these agent-based products. And we refer to this as kind of crossing the chasm from this is a great prototype, a great demo, but actually producing like significant trust and value in a production-based, user-facing way. So today I'm going to show you a little bit about a new development process we've kind of created with our partners about how we've seen successful agents get developed as a new kind of development team mindset. And what we call this essentially is the agent development lifecycle, which is sort of analogous to your traditional software development lifecycle. At a high level, it's really broken down into 4 phases. The first is really before the dev team is even involved. This is more the product, the business, just aligning on what the goals are of the agent and what successful KPIs look like for this agentic system. Is it usage? Is it optimizing productivity? Is it less time your human partners need to spend doing tasks, looking into tickets, things like that? The second phase is then developing what we kind of refer to as that first part of the chasm, which is usually the part that goes well. Developing the demo, developing the prototype, developing the first framework of the agent with its tools and giving it access to the systems, and enough of a place where you can sort of vibe code it, gut check that it works, and show it off to people. The third phase then is really where the production and the trustworthiness of the agent comes into play, which is what we call our flywheel phase. And I think this is the biggest adjustment from traditional software development lifecycle. It's that agent development lifecycle is an iterative and experimental based process. It's no longer just a linear like feature roadmap and things like that. You need to iterate, evaluate, and then improve the agent until it gets to the behavior standards you and your product and your team have for that agent. The last phase then is kind of the agent's working, it's trustworthy, customers are using it, it's in production, and then the continual production monitoring and making sure that just like traditional software, you're aware of issues before your customers report them to you. So I guess we'll save questions for the end. Yeah, okay, cool. So then next up, I actually have a demo about how Arthur can help you implement a process like this with your team and your business leaders and your product managers. And specifically the features I'm focusing on are the people hands-on actually building the agent. But I don't have time to cover a lot of the other ones we have as well. So to walk through an example, I'm creating we call it inventory agent. So imagine you're a seller on Shopify. You want to understand your sales and your trends, which products are hot, those kinds of things. So we have a prototype agent that does a quick, simple little workflow. It takes a user's analytical question, runs it through a text-to-SQL tool. It then executes the SQL tool, generates a graph to show you visually the answer to your question, and then responds back with kind of all this information it's collected. So I'll show off in a new tab here kind of one sample of what this looks like. So I can ask the agent, what are my top selling products last month? And just like we saw in the previous tab, the first thing the agent's going to do is take my question, map that to a SQL query that it can use to answer the question. So we see a little bit here of selecting from a products table. It's going to sum the prices and the sales. The second step, which just went through, is then actually executing that SQL against my database. And we can see the results of that query here. So we see the product ID, the product name, and how many total were sold. And then the last step, as I mentioned before, is the data visualization step. Sorry for the formatting. Maybe I can shrink this a bit. There we go. Where it takes the SQL it generated, the data it found in the database, and then puts this together in like a nice visual chart that you can share, put in slides, things like that, and so on. And then finally summarize just with text to give you some answers to your original question. At this point, I would call this essentially the vibe-coded, I have a prototype, seems to be working pretty well, I can come up here, chat with it, show you all some examples. And now I'm going to show you how you can use some of the tools we have at Arthur to help you take this to the next level and actually start to build a robust agent and something your customers will want to buy and rely on from you. As I mentioned in this slide now, so we're in phase 2, just to kind of ground the conversation. And as part of phase 2, which is setting up kind of the foundation, the first prototype, the first thing we need to do is actually starting to instrument our agent so we can understand what it's doing. And how many people in the room have heard of, I guess, tracing, distributed tracing, open telemetry? Okay. So a very similar concept here, except for agents. And I'll show you quickly a trace here from one of my previous runs, but tracing under the hood gives us the ability to see inside sort of how the agent is thinking and processing, and as we mentioned earlier, managing that context around to produce the answer. Just to give some quick examples here, one thing I've highlighted is an example of the call out to GPT 4.1. We can see, the system prompt, the user query, the response it came back with. I can also dive in here and look at my text to SQL tool, understand how that's working. I can see the user query again, the SQL that it generated, and an explanation of why it came up with that SQL. So at a high level, this is mostly just observability and giving me the ability to troubleshoot when my vibe coding or prototype agent queries go wrong. So that's kind of the foundation that everything else is based on. The next step then is we enter the flywheel phase. So we have a foundation, we can see what the agent's doing. It's time to start optimizing and making corrections and making this production worthy. So the next step we usually think of with our partners is establishing a behavior dataset baseline. So these are essentially a log of all good examples of your agent doing the things it should be doing correctly. And we have a tool that here we go. Yeah, it should be loaded. Okay. We have a tool that lets you start collecting essentially these good examples of agent behavior. In this case, this dataset has 4 columns: a question, the right answer, the right SQL, and then what the right graph should look like. So I've collected these using my agent, saying like, this is a good example. Did you have a quick question? No, okay. Saying these are good examples, it's logged these behavior data sets. And now that I've established sort of this test case or test harness, I can actually execute these in a systematic way against my agent. So if I ever change the prompt, change a tool, optimize something within the agent, I can get a numeric answer that says, is this a step change improvement in the right direction? So let me quick hop over. I'll kick off what we call a test run, which is essentially a combination of a data set and an agent where it will run each behavior test case through your agent and then score the outputs with numeric judges. So let me quick create a test run. I'm going to call this demo. I can select my data set, and then I can select my agent endpoint. And then what I'm doing in this last step here is I'm mapping the question column from my behavior data set as the input to the agent, simulating a user asking it live. So I'll create a test run here, and what we see is this starts to update in real time, and for each of my rows in my behavior data set, we get sort of a live test case actually executing against my agent. I won't sit here and make you all watch this finish. It takes a couple minutes. But the main things to take away here are essentially we have in these purple columns the test case, like gold standard examples. And then as the responses start to fill in here, we can see the agent's answers. So in this case, we have another 4 columns where we can see the generated final response, the generated SQL query, and the generated chart, which is just a giant JSON. Let me open a test I ran earlier today to show you a bit more examples of what this looks like. But at the end of one of these test runs, essentially what you have is, in the yellow columns on the far left, a numeric output for every single test case. And what this lets you do then is establish that flywheel so you can see where your agent's behavior is going bad, work on optimizing those cases, and then iterate until your agent essentially is getting 10 out of 10 on all your test cases. So that is the flywheel part. The last piece then I mentioned is phase 4, which is your agent's working 100% on your test cases. You trust it, your customers want to buy it, ship it to production. And then you need production monitoring. So the last phase of this is another part of the Arthur ecosystem, which is essentially continuous evals against production usage. And just like we saw before, we can run these evals, so tool selection, response relevance, query relevance, against all of your users' interactions with the agent and track and alert them in real time. So that way, if your agent goes off the rails, you get proactive alerts and can go debug things before your users get too upset. I want to show one quick example. This was a screenshot from a customer of ours where they were using our evals here on, I think it was August 6th, when ChatGPT 5 launched. They immediately upgraded and very quickly saw a huge performance degradation over the next 2 days. So we were able to alert with them, and they actually reverted back to GPT-4. I think there were some latency issues before it dropped again because they rewrote the agent and essentially started from scratch. But a fun example of, sometimes even new upgrades can cause issues, and there's still a lot of things to learn with agents. So I'll put this up if you want to connect, but feel free to reach out. My name's Ian, so thanks everyone.
Awesome. Thanks, Ian. I have a question here, but I believe you gave us the answer. It's like, how do you hold the agent accountable? I'm assuming it's evals.
Yes. And I think what people are having a hard time with specifically today is knowing what evals are important. And this really comes down to sort of that phase 1, which is what are the KPIs for your agent? And this right now is varying across a lot of different agents. It's hard to generalize what good looks like because in this case it's getting the right answer to a question, but a ticket agent might be optimizing like how many tickets are completed without extra human review or things like that. So the point to take away, I guess, is to understand what good looks like and then codify that into domain specific evals, so that way when your evals are passing, that equates to an agent with good behavior.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I haven't heard someone mention assigning KPIs to the agent until tonight. I'm not sure anyone else does that, but good luck with that.
Thank you.
Awesome. Great. Up next, we have talked about, let's talk about observability. So Nathan is going to talk about, let me ask Nathan the question before he jumps into the demo. All right, Nathan, let's go. Observability has always been critical to developer experience. How are you applying AI and machine learning in observability? What's your secret sauce there?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So we've kind of taken like an iterative tiered approach at Grafana Labs. We've been experimenting with this for a couple of years. So back a couple of years ago, we were first looking at just like kind of single use LLM usage, like you just send a chat out and see what comes back. And we found this actually pretty useful, but like for pretty minor lifts and tasks. Like the goal here is to try to reduce toil, right, when using Grafana. So one thing we found was like sending the panel or dashboard context and then being able to generate a useful title description. Little shade of Apple here, but like that, basically kind of that type of feature. Maybe not as useful as it could be, right? But one surprising thing that we saw that kind of gave us hope and promise in this technology is with actually flame graphs. We could send an entire flame graph to the large language model, and since large language model, right, is trained on the internet, it actually kind of knew what a flame graph was already, and then it was able to basically describe it pretty well. The neat thing about this is that the user could actually verify what the LM was coming back with because they're looking at the same flame graph too, so they can know if it's hallucinating or not. And actually could provide pretty good like suggestions on how to actually improve the underlying code that was being shown, or the underlying performance issues that were being shown in the flame graph. We did actually run into a lot of head walls though with this initial single-use LLM approach. The biggest thing, right, was just not being able to really provide the necessary context of like what your Grafana instance, what your observability, what your telemetry is to actually like drive really useful workflows. So that we kind of moved on to trying to figure out like how can we make large language models like speak your Grafana instance or like speak observability more. This kind of led into like the tooling, right? Which is, we were pretty early adopter of the MCP protocol, right? Or the MCP standard. And we actually open sourced like a Grafana MCP server about a month before OpenAI like announced that they were going to adopt this. So we're pretty happy about that announcement because it meant like we weren't going to be relegated and having to rebuild this in a different standard. With this, we were able to find that we were able to give large language models more or less agents now, right? The ability to actually kind of have this kind of Swiss Army knife to kind of go into your specific Grafana instance and be able to find the relevant telemetry, alerts, even dashboards, creating dashboards, lots of different interesting workflows that weren't really possible before with just like the single LLM push. And then the third phase, which what we've been currently working on, is kind of like, can we, now that we have a large language model or agent that kind of speak your Grafana instance, can we actually use that to help like drive your Grafana instance? So this is in the form of Grafana Assistant, which is like an agentic browser-based feature that basically, it's secure by default because it only has the permissions that you as a user have. So it can't go rogue and totally delete everything, hopefully, unless I guess you could do that as a user, depending on the permissions, but ideally don't do that. But what we found with that is actually this is unlocking like a lot more interesting, more powerful workflows, allowing people like from no matter what position in the company, from like C-suite downwards, from SREs or non-SREs, to actually be able to like look at your observability data and actually gain real insight quickly, and also just kind of handhold you through the process and not needing to have as much deep domain knowledge. Yeah.
Awesome. That was a lot. I think we got it. But let's see the demo.
All right, there's more.
All right, let's do it.
All right, so today we're going to be looking at actually the Grafana MCP server. So we'll wait the mandatory 1 minute loading time. All right, cool. 30 seconds, not too bad. So today I just want to show you the Grafana MCP server and how it can be made to like make changes in your observability. We're going to be looking at, let me just make sure this is actually legible, because I think it's a little zoomed in. We'll be looking at Cursor, integrating it with Cursor, and then seeing like kind of how, with a basic Node app, how can you kind of, with the Grafana MCP server, actually kind of set up observability on the fly without leaving your code base. So here on the left, we have a very basic Hello World Node app. I mean, this is pretty groundbreaking, right, for San Francisco tech event. But look at this. Sometimes it has bad requests just to kind of spice it up a little bit. So that's exciting. So it's also exporting already a bunch of metrics here. So I kind of cheated, like kind of the hard part of observability is actually like setting it up initially. So I'm cheating in this demo. That's something also we're looking at AI to try to help us fix. But you can basically see a bunch of basic metrics here and HTTP requests. We have Prometheus instance up and running, and we have a Grafana instance with sadly nothing in it, but that hopefully will change here in a second. So just to show you on the Cursor side, we have here our Grafana MCP. So just real fast, in case I'm sure a lot of people here know what MCP is, but basically you can kind of think of it as like a Swiss Army knife, right? To be able to give agents access to your service and be able to like kind of give them like deep context into your service. So for things in Grafana, that's things like getting alert group, getting dashboards, updating dashboards, listing incidents, all those type of things around the observability space. And just a little peek here, this is like how it's actually set up in the mcp.json. Feel free to take that service account token as it's local, so I don't care. But basically, this is just telling Cursor how to access the Grafana MCP, which I think is actually being loaded right through the localhost Grafana instance being ran, which you can see on the left, through Docker. Okay. So what we're going to do here today is going to try, this is a live demo, right, with agents, so what could go wrong? I don't have any Arthur set up yet, so maybe I will after this. So what we're going to do is try to see if we can get Cursor to use the MCP to kind of build a dashboard for me on the fly based off of the metrics that are coming off of this Node app. So what we're going to say is, can you create a dashboard based on the metrics in this code? I'm going to cheat here and say use Grafana MCP. It's been killing me for the life of me for like all last night. It would not, I think it's because it's 4.5 or Sonnet 4.5 because I think it thinks it can do it without using the MCP, which it can't. So I'm going to cheat a little bit there and say that. Normally you shouldn't have to do that. So here we go. So I want to mention here, although I did add an explicit call out to use Grafana MCP, there's nothing custom going on really here. Let me let that run. So right now I'm just giving permission to have it run these tools in the MCP. But I just want to call out, there's like nothing really custom in Cursor here. We're just kind of connecting the MCP and then saying can use it to build me a dashboard in Grafana. So we can see here a couple different tools it's using. Update dashboard, that's a good sign. That means it did something. But we can see it's actually like kind of looking at the data that's available in my Grafana instance and then actually running and updating dashboard. So ideally, if I refresh here, we should be able to see a nice dashboard that AI just generated and updated all from within the code, which is exciting. So this is looking good, but I'm noticing like there's no like latency metrics. So normally, this might take a little bit of time, some Googling, Stack Overflow, RIP. But what we can say is like, hey, can we add some latency metrics to the code? So we'll see what happens here. So this should be live reloaded. The app will be live reloaded. So it's adding some latency metrics. So we can see here if we refresh, now there's some latency metrics. It looks like it did that for me. It actually went ahead and inferred that it would want to update the dashboard and add those latency metrics for me. So if we refresh the dashboard, we can now see, hopefully, some latency metrics coming up now online. Very, very easy, very fast. So there's another question here is like, what else can this do? Like, what if I don't like the way this dashboard looks or like the way it's laid out? We can even go one step ahead and say, can we organize this dashboard better from within Cursor? And what this can do is actually, try to think of it, not just spit out panels willy-nilly, but try to think of a bit more concrete way to show off this data. So we'll run this. I do really like with agentic LLMs is like I can just say this dashboard and it knows what dashboard I'm talking about. Although to be fair, there's only one dashboard in existence, but that's not always the case. So now I refresh, and if I make this a little bit bigger, I didn't really do it before or after, but I'm assuming it organized it and made it better. just trust me on that. So that's the demo here. So ta-da! Like normally, other than like getting the original telemetry set up right, which does take some time, like this type of process would take a couple hours potentially, maybe longer if you've never done this before, and it can be done now in like a couple minutes. So that's really exciting. And then one last thing here. just want to show off Grafana Assistant, very basic. So we talked about like this kind of like the third tier thing that we're working on, which is a Grafana Assistant, which is like the browser-based kind of version, what we were just looking at, kind of leveraging the Grafana MCP. So just a very basic thing, like you say, like, can you find the feature toggle dashboard? It's a very basic use case, right? But I just want to kind of show off, like, this is something that we're kind of building in. It's in public preview in cloud. It's kind of it's a paid feature, right? It might not be loading, so that's fun. Let me refresh. Okay, there it goes. Let me just start here. Can you find me the feature toggle? And I just want to showcase here real fast, like it's leveraging the same Grafana MCP tooling, right? Like search for dashboards, it's just a tool. And then we should have like it should be able to navigate for me once it finds what I'm looking for. Or it's giving me the option to navigate to it. And yeah, fine, it found it. All right, cool, that's it for the demo.
Demo guys work, the demo guys work. I have two questions, two short questions. First question is, how long you been using light mode in cursor?
When it's light outside?
Okay, all right.
I'm one of those people like who switch it, right? Like at nighttime it's dark, and then now it's the sun's up when it's light.
You and one of my engineers at Convex named Ian, who works on our agent component, he also does light mode, and so you two need to be buddies. All right. But both y'all should be crack devs, so that's a good thing.
There's a secret club, yeah.
Yeah, secret club,
mode,
got it.
Yeah.
Second question is, since launching the MCP, and you have like thousands of customers, how many customers with Grafana, what has been some of the biggest learning lessons and the feedback you receive from your customers?
Yeah, so far, I think the biggest one thing that's been interesting, like there's been times, we've never really had, just going to like the demo side, like we never really had a demo fail necessarily in front of a customer, but we have had like a customer say, we don't like AI, we don't want to use it. It's like, okay, yeah. Don't know where that's going to take you in the future, but that's fine. Yeah. But overall, like the biggest feedback has been like, can this do more for me? This is, a lot of customers can like see the potential of this, right? Especially if like newer users or people just joining your team, like this is really great for just quickly getting onboarded. Because you can even ask, I didn't demo this, but you can even ask like, you know, what is my service laid out, or like what services do I have, and it can actually create like a network graph for you, like from scratch. Like this is like really great, but people are kind of wanting more and more and more. And that's kind of led to, you know, we actually originally wrote the assistant as like a monolith agent, and then we had like a system prompt that was like 10K tokens, which is like 40 pages. And so you can imagine, like, as we're trying to add more functionality, we'd, you know, add one flow, break 10, fix one flow, break 10 type thing. This is, yeah, maybe use Arthur for that. But another approach, right, is like kind of, the way to fix that is we use like more modular agents now, right? So we have like the multiple agents and then like one facilitator coordinator agent, and there are multiple specialized agents that only have access to certain tooling that allows it to be much more or less, not deterministic, right, but like more easy to evaluate and have higher quality results. And this allowed us to kind of grow and expand what Grafana Assistant can do. Which is something we're really excited about because there's a lot of potential.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, safeguarding change. That's the next and last thing we're going to talk about. CL. Great. Even the best systems can fail if change management isn't handled well. How are teams rethinking safety in the data era?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I want to bring us back to this topic today, like the future of developer experience, right? And then I think there are two major parts of developer experience. First is really like how do we tighten the iteration loop, right? And then for any system that worked kind of in the past 2 decades is really we have this preview, decide, deploy cycle. And then the faster you have that, the better, right? So for the Vercel demo, we see that. And then the second part is really monitoring, making sure production system is reliable. And so we see that from Author and then from like Grafana. And then, so I think what we're missing here really is that the development cycle for anything involving a lot of data in it doesn't have a single kind of step that allow you to review this data change. Like if you have an impact to your data logic, and then of course for a code, we just like diff the code, right? But data, if you have production data, you now have a bunch of logic changing how you produce that production data. What does that developer cycle look like? How do you verify that data before it hits production? Of course, you can do monitoring observability, just catch the thing when it's around, right? So, but our thesis is really like we need like a way to do that data review, and then the future of code review, like what authors show us, is really a lot of things you care about the golden input and then output behavior. And so you're probably not going to review the code that LLM generate, but you can review the behavior of your agentic system or anything. And then it maps to a data problem, becomes very much like a data review. So once we merge this pull request, so-and-so behavior is going to change. The score is going to drift in a certain way. Are we happy with that? Can we dive into the context to see whether the stakeholder, which is probably the business side or the data side, likes this change or sees that change as the intended behavior? So I think that's where we're missing in this current ecosystem, a data review process for anything that involves data and anything involves all this non-deterministic behavior.
Awesome. I agree. And you have a demo for us, correct? Yes. All right. One more demo.
Yes.
Let's give it up.
So it's all about iteration and reliability, and then including the projector is mostly unreliable in every scenario in panel or conference. This way? Oh. Oh, I'm going to do a mirror. All right, thank you. All right, so this is your typical pull request where you state your intended change and then how you are like testing this, which is great for normal software. But for this is a change in a dbt data pipeline. So for those of you who don't know about dbt, it is a kind of a declarative data pipeline for this mostly SQL. So basically, you organize your SQL file, and then that query generates the downstream data model within your data warehouse. And then so here we're making a SQL change, and then for normal software, you just review the code, test pass is fine. But for this, it actually impacts the data in database. Right? So how do you actually go about and validate that? So here's where Recce comes in. The first thing is that it shows you the part of the data lineage that's being impacted. What this means is really, so for here, this is a small sample project for like all the data models in this data warehouse. And then for here, you can see just the part that's being impacted by this change. So you're making explicit change to this statement, staging payments and customers and so on. But that's not enough. You have to really see the detail. So, so this is a column level lineage, as in like which column you actually change. And then given that dependency, what downstream column, depending on the upstream column, is being impacted. Or maybe the definition has changed. So what this allows is really like narrowing down where you have to look at the data. And then for here, you can see, all right, there's a value segment. And then, this is now impacted because I added a coupon amount and then changed my definition of customer lifetime value. So you can now do a comparison to say, what's this change going to impact my customer segment? Because you might have your team member reported to the CEO that we have high value customer being like 30%. But after this change, once we redefine how customer lifetime value is calculated based on whether coupon amount is applied or not, high value customer is only 10%. Right? So normally you just merge this code, it looks all right, and then but everyone get like super annoyed in the exact meeting and say, hey, why is this all different? And then so you probably all have this kind of experience where like data is not as what you expected. So this is really allow you to see this change, compare this change, come up with like a way to surface the impact before production. And then, so from here, the user, the author for the change can kind of curate a checklist about how I think my intention of the change, which is here in the pull request, and how the data reflected in that change is like aligned with the intention. So really, Recce is about surfacing that context and then sharing that context with stakeholder about my data impacting change, and then is the result correct? Yeah, so that's the demo. Thank you. Yeah.
Great. That's impressive. Get a mic.
Cool questions.
Awesome. Biggest lesson learned from building this? Like, what have you seen works, doesn't work, and what your customers' feedback are saying?
Yeah, so I had this just interesting customer call earlier this morning. So we have an open source offering, so people can just set it up and get it running, and then so they are using kind of in an ad hoc.
I got 1 second.
Ad hoc way that sometimes they think their change is risky, so they use Recce. Sometimes they don't. And then, so on the call, they told me the one time they didn't use in the last month, things broke, right? So, and then that's why they wanted to call us. Is that, hey, can we set up this in your cloud offering for a systematic way that because right now it's the most experienced data engineer would probably do this more careful checks. But as the team grows, they want kind of this systematize that guardrail and then the practice amongst the team that everyone does similar thing. And then you basically the problem is that you can't just run a test suite against all this data changes. You have to surface like the data differences and then just enough that is good for your stakeholder to have the like a very narrow context about hey. This is the important part you have to pay attention to. The data is changing in this way that you care about. Do you agree to that? And then, or do you have any other ways of like telling us what the data definition is?
Great story. Are you selling to startups, large customers, large enterprises, or who's your target market?
Yeah, our target market is really like anyone whose data is on the critical path of their business. Usually it's when the data is being like used, like surfaced to their customer, part of their product, or tied into some automation, which is gonna be like everyone. But right now they're like fintech, healthcare, like really data is part of their product. So as we are doing all this like testing for our software or for our product, when data is part of the product, there's a missing thing for testing that data being correct before they ship to the customers.
No, thank you, appreciate it. Awesome. Let's give our panelists a round of applause, please. Okay, you all have been patiently waiting. So I do have one question for them, but you all been waiting. I'm gonna take 2 or 3 questions. Any questions from the audience? And I have a catch mic, so you might need a duck. So any questions for the audience, for the panelists, before I jump in? I see 1, anyone, 2, 1 more. Any question? Oh, no question. Y'all ready to network and eat? 3, all right, I see 3. All right, 1 second. Test 1, 2. All right, here we go. Are you ready?
You're gonna make me talk into a box. This is ridiculous. This is for the Grafana gentleman. Sorry, I didn't catch your name, but I think I saw in your demo you had like 47 tools or something like that in the MCP.
Yep.
I've heard tool selection like falls off a cliff when you get over like a dozen. So I'm curious how that's working, if you found ways around that, how to maximize tool selection when you get up into that kind of count.
Yeah, definitely. So I kind of brought up, actually, I think in the last question, that we initially had like a monolith agent, right, for the Grafana assistant. And as we kind of scaled up the tool selection, it was a mess. Like it would be selecting tools that it should have selected in any, it should have known better, right? So what we've done to kind of combat that is kind of have these kind of more modular specialized agents that the coordinator agent kind of works with. So there's like an agent just for navigating Grafana, like how do you navigate to a page, which only has access like to navigation MCP tooling, right? There's a specialized agent just for updating a dashboard, which only has access to that small subset. And so the way that we've gone around, like, as we're trying to grow this and have expand it to be as useful as possible, is just by having kind of more modular specialized agents that only have a subset access to tools so that they can't get mixed up as easily, because that definitely is an issue. Awesome. I'm sad I didn't get a talk into the box.
Awesome, thank you. All right, next. Duck.
Hi, so last week at another tech conference, I heard the CEO of Vercel, Guillermo, mention the importance of the day 1000 experience for any product, that users shouldn't graduate out of your product. Do you, I have a question for Reese. Do you personally think that there are any issues with the day 1000 experience of using V0, and how do you think that it could be improved?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there's like, the kind of first part about that I think is interesting is you have to like really try to be your own biggest customer. And kind of what I mean by that is like on Vercel, we have like these UIs and parts of the product that were like designed for kind of a certain scale or for a certain like archetype of customer. And what we found, especially with V0, like V0 is one of kind of the largest, so the way V0 works is they're like one of our, V0 is one of like the largest customers of Vercel, and kind of we don't give like V0 special treatment in the way that it works. Like it kind of goes through Vercel, so we kind of dog food it in that matter. And what's been really interesting about that is like we found all these different parts of the product that like need to be improved, that we've iterated on, etc. And so for V0, I think it's like there's kind of the two parts of like when we hit that day 1000 experience, like how do we make sure we're the ones that are using V0 the most, and then along with that, I don't know that it so much makes sense to like focus on the specific parts that maybe don't scale to the day 1000 experience. Because like I could totally say like project selection probably needs to be improved, like automatic organization of files, starting from previous chats rather than existing chats. Like there are all these ways that the product can scale, but I think what's maybe more a focus for me is like making sure we're really in tune with like the way that our customers give feedback, where their pain points are, and then making sure that we are like using the product just as heavily or more heavily than our customers, so that like by the time that someone reaches the day 1000 experience, we've already ended up at that point, figured out what the problems are, figure out what needs to be improved, and we're ready to go on to the day 10,000 experience.
Awesome. Thanks. Good question. Last one. All right. All right. All right. Hey, good looking.
All right. Hello. All right, so this is for Ian from Arthur. Oh, all right, I'll stand up.
Thank you.
I really like your framing on like the phases and the stages. I think that was really cool. The question is, do you have a more complex example where maybe parts of the prompt are changing? You've got a reasoning trace you're trying to follow as well. Part of the outputs are like documents and stuff like that. Do you have some good practices or tools to help build that data set that you think is the golden data set?
Yeah, I think there's two primary strategies we've seen. The first is, or maybe I'll phrase it as three. The first is with some of our close partners, we've actually seen, I'll stand, so that way, let's see. With our close partners, we've actually seen as they've gone to sell their agent to their clients have actually put up boundaries that say, I will only trust your agent if you can demonstrate X, Y, and Z. So in some cases, the customers of our customers have given them essentially the golden behavior of like, I want to see you pass these cases. If you do, we feel comfortable adopting. So that's probably the first strategy. The second strategy is from developers. I didn't get to show this loop in our ecosystem, but once you have that observability set up and you're vibing with it, checking it, trying it out, starting to build a feedback loop where when you see a good interaction as a developer, you can then save that trace back to your example data set to then build on for the future. Like, okay, that was a good example, let me add that. Or that was a bad example. Let me label why that was bad, and then add the good example of that to the data set. So as a developer, starting to manually curate that. The third, which is probably like the farthest along in the life cycle, is once you have like a prototype, you have a few customers, is actually building product native experiences so that customers can help you curate good examples and bad examples. So this might look like thumbs up, thumbs down. One of our customers actually has done something pretty, the demo I gave is based on their agent. It's a data analytics agent, does graphs, SQL, all that stuff. They allow their customers to actually, from their chat, save off, this was a good answer, this was a good SQL, this was a good graph. And then the customer assembles essentially a domain-specific set of examples for their data. So in some cases, it even makes sense to expose that to end users so they can start to curate the agent's behavior more than your in-house team even can do. Does that kind of help answer your question?
Yeah, I have a follow-up.
Okay. We can chat after, but thank you.
Awesome. Thank you all for the questions. And I'm gonna give this to you since I gave you ish about light mode, so here we go.
Thank you.
Okay, last question. We're here to talk about the future of developer experience. So down the line, let's start with this in first. The future of developer experience, what is it? What is it? What does it look like?
Okay. I think I kind of jumped the gun. It's like the developer experience is really about iteration and then really knowing like what happened, right? So improving that, and then like AI is a great tool for like the example we see like Zero, Grafana, and then in our tool we actually also have like AI guided data validation. But the important part is really the abstraction that we build. That Grafana is like abstraction for how you represent metrics, right? So once you have that, AI can work with that. And what we're working on is like really a representation of what correctness means in the data era. So building better abstraction, helping iteration, and then like know what your application is doing. This is the future of developer experience.
Awesome. Great answer, great answer.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a little bit weirder than I thought it would be. Yeah, so I think really it's going to be like the next 5 years or so, like every single developer tool that like kind of wants to stay relevant will need to kind of integrate with some type of AI assistant feature. The reason for this really is because we're kind of seeing a shift, right, from kind of code-centric workflows to like more natural language-centric workflows, which really is kind of democratizing it, but also is a little bit worrying for everyone's job security, including, yeah, because it's getting to the point like, right, where you don't need to, study or work for 5 to 10, 15 years to become a senior developer. Like maybe you can get the same results and impact being able to write code, vibe coding, right? Like way faster than that. I kind of see the developer experience side tooling though as a positive though, because basically you kind of think of these kind of agentic assistants as almost like teammates that can kind of hold your hand and help you get value a lot faster each stage of the process. So I think it's kind of an exciting world, a little bit scary because you don't know like where we're all going to land in it. But ideally, as long as like we're kind of keeping the human in the loop still, like with like Grafana Assistant, for example, like it's still kind of it's doing actions on your behalf, right? You're still in the loop. You're still kind of directing and guiding it. I think the future's exciting, but we'll see.
I'll stick with the non-box, but thanks. All right, the future of dev. At Arthur, we're definitely in like a lot of the agent space, so thinking about agents and how that affects developers is definitely top of mind. And one place I'm really curious in the future, today a lot of the problems are context, making sure the agent understands like code base and how to make the change, and making sure you're guiding it to the right way to make the change. But I assume in the short term that will be figured out, and I'm curious to see what happens then when one developer is orchestrating a team of agents and they're collaborating together, and whether that's code review or data review or things like that. It seems like the human in the loop is going to quickly get overwhelmed trying to maintain context on what all of its agents are doing. So what does scaling that look like? I know there's some tools out there for like automated code review, but I think honing into these tools that highlight this is where you need your attention here, and filtering kind of through some of that noise and allowing the human in the loop to take a step up off of just babysitting the agents, I think is going to be a big thing in the developer experience going forward.
Awesome. I agree 100%. Humans managing agents, managing agents.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
Agents all the way down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think on my end, I think what I see it is just like iteration speed getting really good. A big kind of, one of the reasons that I joined Vercel is I previously was working at Microsoft, and I was kind of like thinking, how do you scale a company without losing the ability to like ship quickly and rapidly iterate and like make your users happy? Because at the end of the day, that's what matters. And when I was working at Microsoft, it was like a 4-week lead time from fixing a bug to it being in production. If it was like a critical one, it would be there quicker. But like, yeah, it was kind of crazy. And like for me, I'm like pretty public facing in the work that I do, and like I will get people that will tweet at me, and I will get a tweet, I will see it, and I'm like, okay, I know exactly where that is, how to fix it, and then it either goes to me or to an agent through like cursor agent, and we have like 4-minute build times with Turboback, down from like 20 minutes. It used to be 20 minutes to build our site, now it's 4 minutes. It's like the first place that I've ever worked where the build times has gone down as time has gone on, which is really nice. And it's going to get faster, which is great. But yeah, it's I think just like I'm very optimistic for like the tooling getting better. I've got a lot of love for Convex and Bun.
Thank you.
And like the amount of like mental load that you have to do as a developer kind of decreases in that like you get to focus on building a product and kind of not so much like the implementation. And then I've just really been blown away when you give agents the ability to test and iterate and work on problems themselves. The kind of like last thing I'll say on it is like my team is very bought into writing good software. We have like we have really robust like testing that goes against like local stack, so it like hits real. Local stack is like a local version of AWS, so all of our backend stuff is hitting like local versions of what it would be doing remotely. So we're not really mocking anything. We're working with something called effect TS, which lets us do typed errors, and so we know exactly what the behavior of our program is. And then what's interesting is it's like this kind of more niche way of writing software, but the agents are so good at pattern matching and following previous implementations that like they're incredible at working with like a really robust, good code base. So I feel really optimistic that like in the end, quality is going to kind of win, and that benefits for the soul.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for rocking your OG Convex hat.
I like it.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, good. Those are gone. Yeah, no more.
It's one of my favorite hats.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. All right.
Yeah, I think if we look back when we talk about developer experience, DX, right, you also think a lot about user experience in general. Because if you look at the way we as people interact with computers, right, it all started from, you have to know, basic programming to be able to do anything. And then all of a sudden, we now had the UI phase where, you can now interact with a machine that has visual elements, buttons, and all the other things. And ultimately, there was that massive race of let's build the fanciest UI possible and so on. Which kind of, I like the Photoshop example in the sense that if you look at Photoshop, like way back when, you had to study a tool to be able to do anything. And to me it was a good example because I remember I had a book about how to use a Photoshop. And I recently started thinking about it, that was way back when you had to read a book to use the software, right? And then all of a sudden we have UI that is so easy to navigate, you don't need to learn anything. But now in the AI phase, it's even easier. So with reducing that barrier between your thinking process and the method of delivery of those thoughts to the computer. So back when in the mainframe times, you had to, okay, which command do I run? Then which button do I press? Now I just can express myself with the machine And now I'm just expecting that to understand more natively what I'm trying to accomplish. So I think what's great about this is that it reduces the amount of tooling that I need to interact with, which is great because to me it's a noise reduction in the sense that, there is different stacks of tools, frameworks, libraries, components that I need to use in each and every one of the developer journey parts. So now there's a reduction in that because I can interact with one tool and it does all those things for me. And the other thing is just it makes your ability to express yourself as an engineer, a lot better, because ultimately people think about, I think from the outside, a lot of people think about engineering as, a very, I think, precise profession, which it is, but it's also extremely creative because at the end of the day, you're expressing yourself, your ideas and thoughts in a certain way. So I think now what's great about this time of developer experience is that you have an ability to be able to express yourself as an engineer in more ways and a lot faster than you had 3 years ago or even like 3 months ago. So that's what I found to be extremely, extremely excited.
Awesome. Thank you. Lightning round, last one. Promise. Pro vibe coding or pro vibe engineer? One word. Two words. Vibe coding or vibe engineer? No why. We can talk about why later. You get this is your stake on the ground. Vibe coding or vibe coder or vibe engineer?
If you want to be paid less, it's vibe developer.
Vibe developer. Okay. Vibe developer. We have an asterisk. Vibe. We have an optional vibe developer. All right.
The vibe pull request reviews.
What's that again?
Vibe pull request reviews.
Vibe pull. Okay. I gotta take it.
Vibe engineer.
Vibe engineer.
I'm going the same.
What's that?
Same.
Same vibe engineer. You got to commit.
Yeah. Vibe engineer.
Okay, there we go. All right.
Vibing.
Vibing? All right, good. Awesome. Thank you, everyone. All right, let's give it up for our panelists. I have 3 short, quick things to say, and then we can go to networking and food. One is Convex is hiring, so if you're interested in coding and TypeScript and Rust, we use AI, but we're looking for serious developers who want to throw down. The founders of Convex, they built the sync engine at Dropbox years ago, so they're looking for hardcore developers that can throw down. So Convex is hiring. The second thing is, who likes boba? And boba drinkers here? All right, we did a boba pop-up a couple weeks ago. There's a card at the boba pop-up at Little Sweet across from YC. It says, just use convex.dev. If you go there and say you want a Convex discount, you get free boba on us. You have to take the card, and you have to go check out Convex. All right, so free boba on us lasts probably until another couple days. And the third thing is, if you're thinking about building a real-time app or you need a database or you're outscaling your existing database, what the card says, just use Convex. Thank you all. My name is Wayne Sutton. Thank you all for coming. Have a great rest of your tech week.